I'm sitting in the Chicago O'Hare Airport trying to not look like a crazy person, trying to get episode 77 put together. Hopefully this all works. Had a great day at the Midwest Gaming Classic. This episode will be all about the forum that I hosted with legendary pinball designers and future legends of the industry. Let's go. Welcome to Coast2Coast Pinball, episode number 77. My name is Nate Shivers. It's Sunday evening, last day of the Midwest Gaming Classic, trying to fly home to San Diego. Flight delayed. Was absolutely honored that Mark and Dan at the Midwest Gaming Classic invited me to host the forum, the Pinball Forum today. You will hear from such greats on this forum as John Papaduke, Steve Ritchie, John Trudeau, Greg Ferreras, Ben Heck, Charlie Emery, Tanya Kleiss, Kevin Kulik. Did I say John Trudeau? I did. I feel like I'm forgetting somebody in there. But anyway, hopefully this quality, this audio is high enough for the show. If it's not, you'll never hear this. I nearly didn't record this, but John Papaduke stopped me ahead of the forum and he said, "You're recording this, right?" I said, "Well, no, just for the live audience." And he said, "Whoa, aren't you missing quite the opportunity?" And I said, "Yes, you're correct." So I tried to record it, and we'll see how this board mix came off. Again, absolutely highlight of my weekend. Hope you enjoy. I think we had 3 questions. It went 50 minutes. It does not take much to get these guys talking about pinball. So some real highlights in here. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, gentlemen, all for being here. I appreciate it. They asked me if I would come and moderate this forum, and really I think we just have to kickstart you guys and you will take it over. I don't think there will be much need for me. I would like to ask you, gentlemen, as you design games and as you look at the way the market has changed, pinball games were originally designed for operators to buy to make a profit on and make money on. Much of the business now is for people to put in their home and play the game and enjoy the game and have friends over. How does that change the way you look at design from the very beginning to the end? What does that affect how you design the layout? Are you not so much worried about earnings potential as you used to be? Or do you still feel earnings is the core to make pinball successful? And I'd like to start off with Mr. Trudeau here.
I got the mic. For me, anyhow, the incentive is still the same. I still want to try and get the best game for the route or someplace on the street anyhow, or in an arcade, even though sometimes it doesn't exist yet, but it's coming back. So I design for me and I design for the player. Whether it ends up in his house or on a street location, it should be viable in either place, hopefully. Anybody else? Want to take this?
For me, it's not really any different because, well, first of all, we're not too sure. Actually, we are sure. We're not at the 50-50 enthusiast versus operation, pinball. But with our 3 models, that's what we do at Stern. We make a pro for the street. Sometimes I wish that it was the other way around, but we have to make an affordable version of a game that people want to operate. And it ends up that they're simple and also easier to maintain for that reason, not so complicated. And for the enthusiast, we get to go crazy, which is great. It's fun and it's also a ton of hard work. But I say that I think we are servicing both markets just fine.
Charlie, Ben, Kevin, John, I'd love to hear, because your projects right now are, I think, mainly aimed at collectors and enthusiasts who are bringing the games into their homes. Charlie, you want to start off?
Obviously, we're the babies of the group. We do have our first game on location, and it's exciting. To me right now, the biggest thing we're facing is, my God, please keep this game running and don't let it break. That's all I'm worried about. We understand, I think Ben and I both understand, that both of our games are going to be heading to the home market. But at the same time, I have to make sure, my job is to make sure that they're reliable for an operator. And we do have operators inquiring about our games that are looking for something a little bit different.
And as far as the code goes, I have deliberately made it kind of really deep, and also tells a story about the ghosts and whatnot, because the majority of our games will end up in home use, so I wanted to make it deep and tell the story for the user at home so they can go on an adventure. How do you feel about that?
I think coming from the boutique angle, we know ahead of time that our games are going to most likely end up in homes, and that gives us a little more leeway as Ben touched on, go a little bit deeper with the rule set. You're not getting 30-second, 50-cent drops, and adding a couple features here and there that would benefit the home user a little bit more than something like our login system and stuff that you'd never see on the location being used a lot. But if you know it's going to home, you can kind of leverage that a little bit and get a little bit more out of it.
I think I was lucky to work at Bally and Williams. At Bally, we made games. I always called them Bally was a very family company, so people hung around and you went out for beer after work. And then when we got bought by Williams, those guys, they were the best at making games, and they looked at it completely different than we did at Bally. So I was lucky to work with Steve and Larry DeMar and those guys, and they kind of said, well, the stuff you make is really bad right now, and you need to kind of change. And they refined us to make games to earn on location, and a lot of times we didn't know. We would have discussions about artwork and color and all this type of stuff. Nobody knew if your game was any good until it was on location. And then the first week, the first days, you'd be watching the game and see how much it made. And if it did well, then you would kind of keep coding, keep going. If it didn't do well, like Circus, we had to rip out all the speech the first week of Circus. He was a really evil ringmaster. And because the earnings were $40, $70, where Theater Magic was $500 a week. So we didn't really know till the games were put out. But today it's different, where the people buying, at least the games that we're making, they have a very particular eye on what they want. They know what pinball should be. So therefore, we totally, at least I look at it completely the opposite way, is, how much artwork can we draw? How much, stainless steel can we put in the game? Let's not use any MDF in the cabinet, or just things like that, because the customers kind of look for that, and they understand and they appreciate those things you're putting in the game. So in my case, it's not so much about earning, but interesting enough, when you put together those issues or those ideas of quality or detail or creativity, all of those things kind of filter down into excitement. And so then, so when we get a Magic Girl, when we finish building the prototypes, we're going to put one out on location, and I'm going to be curious to see if it makes more than a local a game that's on location, just because of some of the new things. And if it does earn more, then it's okay, what's in the formula that's different that this game would earn more? And if it earns less, it's kind of the same thing. What pulls it down? But for us, it's definitely about details. Everybody is very sophisticated, and they really kind of appreciate that. So it's completely different.
Thank you. I think the age of the internet has brought pinball enthusiasts more into the mix than they ever were before. A lot of times, I think you didn't know anything about a pinball game until you walked into a location and there it was. How does the sort of collective consciousness now that people can see the steps and they're eager to know what the next move is, and some of you guys have gone as far as sending prototype shots out and artwork is leaked out. Obviously Stern is not that way. Stern, I think, is the kings at keeping things very quiet until and it's out. How does the internet and the enthusiasm that some of the players and buyers play into the approach that you might take with your games and how you design and how you build?
I think the biggest part of the internet influence comes from like what John was saying, how when you used to put a game out on location, you didn't know if it was going to be any good or how people are going to receive it until it's been out there for at least a couple of weeks. But with the internet now, we've had those same games have been out for decades, and people have been raving about the things they like and don't like about them, so it gives a really good direction to follow. 20 years ago, there was really no way of knowing that people wanted speed, flow, and punishment in a pinball game. But now if you pay attention to the top-rated games and how people react to them and why they like them, it's easier to kind of nail down what you're shooting for when designing a game.
I like the Stern approach. I don't want anybody to see it until it's done. I don't want to talk about it. Ben Heck is like Benjamin Snowden Heckendorn. He leaks everything onto the internet on me. We still love him. But yeah, I like their approach. Yeah, you're doing it the right way, I think. That's my personal opinion.
Well, it's the traditional way. Well, like in the 70s, pinball, and 60s too. Pinball companies were stealing from one another like crazy. So the door sort of closed at all companies about games coming up. So it's not really a thing that Stern does. It's a thing that is traditional. And today there's other problems too. We have, licensing agreements and, with people, and it has to happen at a certain time and nothing before that. And often we get to see, scripts and whatever, and we're not going to divulge anything like that. It's something that people probably don't think much about. You probably think that we just like to hide everything, but it's better this way. It is better. That's what I think anyway.
Yeah, I guess there's a little bit of a danger with, giving too much information too soon, because, in today's day and age, there's a armchair critic out there everywhere, and if they see something before it's ready, we know it's not ready, but if you see something too soon, you're gonna, some people will jump on that, and you got to wait until you see it and play it and experience it. That's the thing. And back in the day before the internet, that was it. Like you mentioned, you walk into a location and go, whoa, what's that? It was that initial excitement of like, wow, there's a new game here. Then after you played it, 5 or 6 or 10 times or 50, then you decided, wow, this is a good game, and it was based on how many quarters came in. So it's a little bit of a danger zone these days. I think it's helped the boutique guys. I, too, am a boutique guy with Whiz Bang Pinball. And what I did there early was to make sure that we weren't giving too much information. It was more of like our backstory of why we were doing it, rather than here's what we're doing today. Once we got far enough along, then it was like, okay, here's a little snippet of what we're working on today. But I think overall it can be helpful. The internet can be helpful for the boutique companies.
What he said. Pretty much. Mustang theme was leaked on purpose because it's the 50th anniversary for the Ford Mustang. And there was a lot of pre-opinions voiced out there. And it was mostly geared towards the automobile and, of course, nothing towards the pinball because nobody had seen it yet. Now that it's finally getting out and we're getting some rather pleasant reviews coming back in, it's typical. Leaking it early, I don't think it's going to be a problem. Everybody's going to do their own speculation, and that's the way people are. Once they play it, they'll form their own opinion, and I'm glad they get out there and play it.
Yeah, I think that with the internet, and actually working with Ben and with Charlie, Ben, if you have a box of screws, he'll take a picture of it and post it on his Twitter account and say, John has these like cool box of screws or something. And I'm like old school where we were in, like a room and you wouldn't show anything. So I think the internet helps because, and people want to know the process. So, I've been in Steve's office a couple times when he was at Williams, and I'd seen pictures of it, and it was just like the pictures, big drawing board and pencil drawings, and I'd hear his music because I was in the office next to him, and so it was kind of cool to visit. But it's like, well, what's his process? What does he draw with? What does he use? What are the posters on the wall? So I think people today, they want to know kind of more about the process, and then for me, it helps them appreciate more the end product. So you're not just buying a game in a box. You actually see the creators of the game, and pinball's a team effort. It's not like one guy, but you see all their different, how they kind of work together to get to that end process. But I think one thing I just forgot to say was innovation. So I think all the great pinball games that have really done well always had an innovation or a paradigm, something that shifted the paradigm. And obviously, in Steve's game, he created the flash lamp on a pinball game, and it may not seem like a big deal, but when you played a flash game in 1977 or operated them, we had them on location. They earned $700 a week, flash. We had to go 2 times a week to do the coin box. And you may not say, oh, there's nothing there, whatever, but it was just a beautiful game. But that flash lamp was, a new designer kind of thing in the toolkit that they could use. And I think games that have those kind of milestone or pivotal, whatever it is, really earn more, but then really help, pinball to kind of move it along with new ideas and things. But yeah, I think the internet's great, but not too much, because you don't want to show everybody everything, because then they're just waiting now. When are you done? When, where if you kind of keep it back a little bit, it keeps it exciting, kind of like the tradition. So.
What do you think, Daniel?
What I think, let's see, as an employee of Stern, no comment, except for what they said. But before Stern, I was a member of the internet, and
They took your card away when you got to Stern, though.
Yeah, they did. Sometimes I use my friend's account sometimes, but when I first got completely obsessed with pinball, I was making video games for about 15 years, and around 2006-07, I stumbled across the insides of an electromechanical pinball machine, and I haven't stopped playing or figuring them out, and I wanted to know exactly how they worked, and it was awesome, all this information about how to fix them, where to find them, like who's got what and where to go, and then places to ask questions and opinions. It's really been neat to see since like 2007. There was the last downturn, and just it's really I think the internet's a huge part, obviously, of the latest resurgence, because it's sort of blossoming. Like people start finding out about it more and more. Now it's getting on TV, and like all kinds. Like this year, there's been tons of news ads and things, and it's really neat to see the just a whole new generation of kids and 20-year-olds learning about it. And there's still people who don't know yet, so keep on talking about it. As far as feedback on what on the games, it is interesting to as soon as we put out one little picture of something, and then people have a lot of opinions about it, and then eventually someone gets out there and plays it, and then has a more educated opinion about it, and it's useful to have access to that type of player feedback to see we try something and see what people like, and from the software side we can make adjustments, and there's so much information, it takes time to filter through all of it, but we listen, we read about it, and try to sort of do experiments. Like, people don't like this part of the code, say, we'll adjust that, or talk to a lot of people and try things, and then play it with some expert players and some casual players and make adjustments. And it's very useful. It's very useful to have access to so much information and so many opinions. Although it's hard to, you have to sort of distance yourself, because there can be, sometimes people say mean things, sometimes they say great things.
One thing I forgot. Also, I think in a lot of cases it can do a lot of damage. So people sit behind their keyboards. I get toasted all the time. And I think people forget that, we all love making pinball. We would rather do nothing else. And we're doing it to help obviously the industry, help the business, help all the new people coming in, help shows like this. And that's the prime reason we're doing it. So if we're getting, flamed, and this, Mustang's a pile of junk, or this, whatever it is, it's like, it really doesn't help anything. If you have suggestions to make the game better, we'll send it in. Hey, have you ever thought about a blue thing on top? Or, that helps us. But, we're doing it because we love doing it. It's very hard work. A lot of us, in some cases, are at a huge risk doing this. And we do it for everybody out here. We don't do it for ourselves, because we've all made great games, and we don't really need to do it anymore. But we continue to do, and to come here and talk about it. So, so positive is definitely better, because it can get nasty. So.
I have one thing to say with the code. Yes, I do like leaking things, but it's kind of part of the fun. Like with the Stern thing with Mustang, of course it was on purpose, and people were talking about it for you. That's the best kind of publicity. And I try to be really, really open, because when you're starting up, Jersey Jack had this too, where you had to be more honest. You have to show people that there is progress behind the scenes. We're getting stuff done, and like the last 4 days before the show, on my website, on my blog, benheck.com, I was listing every single bug that I was fixing in my game. And I was like, screw it, I don't care if people see this, because I want them to appreciate all the work that goes into it. So if there is a little, iffy thing at the show, they're like, okay, well, yeah, overall it worked pretty good. So we're even going to post our source code. I just don't give a crap.
And I was going to keep zombies under wraps, say nothing. I pull up in the parking lot, unload the back door, and everybody's like, where's it at? Ben says it's here.
I was wrong to assume that my Twitter followers wouldn't intersect with pinball fans. It was an error in logic, so yeah.
I wanted to ask you guys, since we have such a varied group here, we have both designers, programmers, artists. One of the great things about pinball is that it's so many dimensions. You're not just looking at a flat screen of 2D or even a 3D screen, but you're looking at a physical game that has artwork. It has science in it often with magnets and toys. It has a theme often that maybe strikes you as something that you remember, whether it's Star Trek or Mustang. Where do you, as a designer and as an artist and as a programmer, how do you divide all that up into how you design? Is it the play has to come first and then the art? Does the art drive some of that? What is that balance, and what is sort of that like trying to juggle all those things that go into making a great pinball game?
Why is everybody looking at me? I don't know. The juggling, it all comes from my experience. All the juggling comes from finding all the professionals who know what they're doing well beyond me. I've always felt as though I could design a fun game and code a fun game, but there's guys out there who live and breathe for the small aspects. The example I always give is Mike from Flipper Fidelity lives and breathes pinball and audio. I'm not the audio guy at all. So I find this guy who's interested and excited and happy to help out, so that way I have the best audio system I can get, and I didn't have to think about it at all, besides the fact that this guy knows what he's done and has been doing it forever. Aside from that, I'm just going to pass him this way.
One thing John taught me, Papa Duke, was if it shoots good in foam, it'll shoot really good in metal. So we used a lot of hot glue, or Nordmanite, as Steve would call it. And, we just made sure the game shot good, and then we did the art and everything else. So that was our approach.
My approach was basically I looked at what Ben had done, which Ben's game is more of a fan layout with extremely deep rules at this point. I wanted to do something completely different so that there would be some separation between both of the Spooky Pinball titles. And I wanted my game to be fast, fun, random, and a little bit different. Still have some shots that you have to make. But in my mind, I'm looking at, Steve sitting next to me, and John, and guys like, and John Trudeau, and Mr. Papaduke, and everybody else. Am I going to design a game with Steve Ritchie flow? No, I'm not that good. So I have to find ways to make something cool and unique that I think you guys will like. And, thank God we had Dennis Nordman to come in and kind of help me smooth things out. And, hey, you need to think about this a little bit better. And Steve's offered advice. And everybody else, John Papaduke, it was like summer camp with him for a while there. It's just, if we don't learn from these guys, where do you go? Yes, I consider these guys the professionals. We're trying to become what they are.
And you're doing a good job of it. Got to say, I like those games. Well, my secret is 2 shoestrings and a hubcap. I'll never tell. Okay, I will. What we do is we brainstorm together before anything really happens. I'm thinking about what devices I could have on the play field that connect with whatever the license is, what I can do to create features, it's really important to have a nice list of what's really important, prioritized. What you really got to have that makes the statement about your theme or your, you got to have that. You got to have some rules in mind. You have to have, and I'll tell you, just, people call Greg here an artist, but he's much more than that. He's a game designer too, and we work together. I mean, often, it can be anybody. That's interesting. That's another thing. Somebody has to be the dad of the game. Every game needs a father. There's been a lot of horrible things that have happened with, just too many cooks or nobody stepping up maybe to lead it. And the game dad can be an artist. He could be, I may be a mechanical engineer, but I don't know of any, that, but definitely software people. Someone who really wants to carry, the torch and with passion, so that you actually believe in your theme and you build a game around it, and you try to associate everything, that's within that theme. And in the music, you express it with, what the ball does. You express it with the music and the sounds, definitely, and the speech. The most important thing, and it's really hard to do this, is to evoke emotion. It's very interesting. That's an important ingredient.
From the art standpoint, I've had the luxury and the benefit of working with many of these guys. Steve Ritchie designs Steve Ritchie games. John Papaduke designs John Papaduke games. But I have had the luxury of being able to work with many of these guys. So it's always a little bit different. Everybody's got their own style of how they run a team, and it's cool because Steve definitely has some good interesting ideas right at the onset, and then we start plugging things together and we talk art, we talk sounds and music and stuff like that. Dennis Nordman, I've done a lot of games with Dennis, and his style of designing from scratch is completely different, and it doesn't mean it's better or different or wrong. It's just different, and the results are speak for themselves with all these guys. So that's for me been the excitement in my career, is to be able to work with different styles of design and different thematic approaches, and that's what makes it exciting. And Steve's comment about emotion, yeah, I definitely want personality to come out of a game. I want everybody to understand what this game is and what it's saying to you while you're playing it. That's part of the cool thing of pinball, is that even though it's this mechanical device with a steel ball running around like crazy, you can get laughs, you can get emotive points to the game that crescendo into something huge. And to me, that makes it exciting. It's almost like a little movie under glass, So, I've just been in a great position to work with, everybody on this type of thing.
Thanks. Everybody said everything. I don't know. I think everybody, as far as the designers are concerned, approaches it in their own manner. But I believe everybody here also wants to get to the same place. A good game, a lot of fun to play, a lot of deep things for the player to enjoy, and the personality of the game should come through too. Every game should have its personality. I've been lucky enough to work with the Williams and now the Stern people that are just very excellent at doing this. My years at Premier were pretty much on my own, and it was a battle just to get things done sometimes. But my approach is to get the kinetics, get the geometry of the game down, and enjoy the flow of the ball. And once I do that, I'm happy. As far as that's concerned, getting the rest of it together is sometimes a challenge. But when you got a great team working with you, it comes together, and it's very rewarding. And I love to do it. Johnny?
Yeah, as Charlie was mentioned, we're all students till the masters teach us. When I went from Bally to Williams, I had very bad, clunky flow. Steve one day came into my office and shut the door, and he told me how awful my stuff was. But he showed me how to fix it. He gave me a few pointers, thinking about the ball, where does it go when it comes down? Just stuff we never thought of. And so as long as someone is still teaching the people that want to learn, then that's really going to really be good. But for me, it's always theme, name. Theater Magic had 50 names. It was Magic at David Copperfield, but after that, we had 50 names we went through to end up with Theater Magic. And the characters, start drawing the backlash right away. I like having big characters that look out at you, reach out to you to bring you to the game. And then we'll start, in my case, we start playfield sketching and geometry at the same time. So we'll work those through, and a lot of times the artwork will influence geometry. We might have a cool squiggle or something, and it's like, well, let's put a magnet there. And those two work together. So the artists like it because they have they have more input, and the game just has a more organic feel as you're working, as opposed to here are the inserts, you got to draw circles around it, and you're done. And that's my style. And people that visit, we got the foam and the glue, glue gun, and the 3D printers. Thanks to Ben, all of us have 3D printers now because of Ben. And and it kind of goes that way. But it's always theme, name, character that we start with, or I start with.
Well, I'm pretty new to this. I've been at Sturton for a year. So what I've learned so far is it's pretty hard to make a pinball machine. It's challenging, and it's a lot of fun. And it's very iterative. Like once the machine, I'm somewhat involved in talking about the theme and the playfield as it's being designed, but we really get it once it's a whitewood and start playing it a lot and adding stuff to it. When I first what I learned making a custom Metallica game was I spent a lot of time I customized an Earthshaker machine and redid all the electronics so I could play music and play sound. And I thought I was done once I had it all hooked up and I could play a sound when I hit a switch. And I discovered quickly that there's a lot more than just this switch makes this sound. It was a big eye opener, and I've been learning a lot about it ever since. And it's been, I'm still learning a lot. It's great. I'm soaking up as much as I can. But I guess the biggest thing I've learned so far is you come up with a theory of what would be fun, put it in, try it, play it. If it's fun, awesome, and if it's not fun, then just try again. And it's lots of playing and lots of iteration and tuning and just months and months of playing the same thing. And you play it it's fun for 5 times, but how about 100 times? Sometimes it's a lot of hard work playing that pinball machine and listening to it and listening to am I just tired, or is that anyway. But so it's a lot of polishing. And I'm really glad to be here. Thanks.
Back to Greg.
Going back to each game designer style, one of the good things about working with Steve is there's this clear definition that happens when I'm working on a sketch or something, and I present it to Steve, and he has these like demarcations of things, and one of them is you can't hate it. And, and then it goes all the way up to bitchin'. That's bitchin'. So if I hit bitchin' sooner than you can't hate it, then I feel I've done my job that much quicker, and I can move on and get better things done.
Oh, yeah, and Steve, also, if 3 people say it suck, where you don't go like, well, how is that? You just let them, and they go, that sucks. You have to change it, because that means 100 people are going to say it. And now it'll be harder to fix if you made a whole bunch of games and everybody's noticed that. So if 3 people independently come over and they say it sucks, then it does. You got to change it.
I got one more. So the other demarcation is, he looks at something and, and then he says, I'll talk to you later. And he runs out of my office. And 2 hours later, he comes back and goes, Lyman likes it. And then it's like, yes!
Usually I say, I don't hate it. That's, if something is good, I'll say, I don't hate it. But it's not true. Often I'll say to people, hey, you've done a great job, or whatever. So they make fun of me. I don't mind. But it is true. It's like, it's kind of like, it's like if you're being an artist, okay, like Greg, or actually, get out of here. We're all artists. I'm a kinetic artist. I want people to enjoy pinball. I don't have all the answers, but I try to do my best to bring a fun game. That's the most important thing, is how fun is the game. And, you can walk to an arcade, and if you really want to, you could. For some people the fun is in deep rules. For some people, the fun is just the excitement. For some people, the fun is it's probably not the artwork, but it's probably, getting a good score. Anyway, we try to get it all together. Don't always succeed, but that is the magic, to draw in people with every single, method of communicating that you can. The dots, how the ball moves on the playfield, music, sound, speech, etc. Um, it's a personal thing to make a game, and none of us like to hear, you know, I don't know, I don't hear it that well, but I think John Papaduke said something about if 3 people don't like, it's actually 2. if 2 people, but not Pat Lawler, okay, he could come in my room. He never said anything really great about any game I ever did, so, you know, I can't really, you know, there's no equating that. But with normal people, you know, if 2 guys are playing your game and they walk up to you and they say, you know what, that sucks. It's got to be out. You got to get it out. But it's a hard thing to look at it because you think, the first thing you think is, oh God, I did all that work. Wait, I did it. It must be right. No, it's not right. You know, go through all these things, but smart people make the change. Smart people remove everything that's bad from the playfield. And this is another thing. It's like people send us drawings and stuff, and I suspect that there's a drawing or some information coming in the mail for me, or it's rarely used anymore, but people submit things by email. I'll read the first few words. I have an idea. Our instructions are to bring it to Shelley Sachs, and she sends it back to the sender. And that's what we do. On the other hand, I want to make it clear that what I do, and I think most of us do, is get everybody's consensus about what's going on. And if someone has a good idea and they want to put it in your game, you take it. You don't go, oh, I have to think of everything in this game. I don't have to. And I'm fortunate to work with a lot of great people who provide lots of ideas.
Just a quick one, the up-down bumper on Circus, we had the 3 bumpers, and we're trying to move it around. We had it in the lab. Jim Shird comes up, and he goes, why don't you make one go up and down? And just at that time, Kordak had a gusher in his office with the up-down bumper, and that's how it happened. Literally in minutes, we're like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. And then we always say, that's kind of like Jim Shird's idea, and worked pretty good. And so Steve's, right.
With hating it and, like, more than one person, when we were at the Chicago Expo with our Ghost game, we had the green cabinet and the green backglass, and I think it was a lot more than 2 people. It was like around 90% of the people were like, you have to change that. Yeah, and the thing that was weird is I expected people to hate the fact it was monochromatic green, but what they actually hated it was that it was photos of people that weren't famous. Because I think it reminded them of all the Gottlieb games like Bad Girls and Genesis and whatnot. And then I was trolling.
Hold on. Whoa.
The artwork. It was a poison chalice. Anyway, and I was trolling on Pinside this morning. Finally had some time. And people were like, I can't believe they changed the artwork. Why did they go with the drawing and a cabinet? I like the old one. It's like, okay, you were like the one person who did. So, yeah, at some point it's over. Yeah, 2 people is overwhelming, and we definitely had to change. At great expense, but whatever.
As the manufacturer of his game, I will say just out of the first 20, 2 were green, the rest are blue.
Green's the cursed color in pinball. I've heard that one.
That's what John Papaduke tells us.
No green, they say. No green.
We don't have a scale of I don't hate it to bitchin' at our shop, but we have this thing we call married to. We'll come up with an idea for just a certain playfield section, and when it comes down to discussions about where to move things or how to make things react, we get this encroachment where we say, no, you can't. I'm married to that. You can't move that. And it becomes like this big thing where we bicker back and forth about who's married to what and what has to change and what can't.
I would like to ask you guys, what can designers and or pinball companies do to further the hobby? How can we grow the hobby, the industry, if you will, to the next level? As we've had this resurgence that we've all clearly seen in the last few years, prices on secondhand games have gone up, prices on new in-box games have gone up, more games seem to be being built. What can you do now from the actual manufacturer standpoint, the design standpoint, to kick that even further down the road and keep this thing growing?
Get Ben Heck to retweet everything you do.
No, I was going to say I think the technology needs to advance much further than it is. The games they're expensive and there's a lot of labor involved, but I believe there are things that can be done that would be done in any other industry, like the amount of labor it takes to run a wiring harness, or you could have a camera and an ARM chip doing optical ball tracking. You know, any other industry would be doing that. I think I know I'm kind of on a soapbox here. I don't think there should be any lights under the playfield. I don't think there should be any switches. That stuff's ancient. It needs to go. And when that goes, you kind of see it already with like Medieval Madness remake. There's a lot of things in that are fairly advanced. I think you could reduce the labor costs, bring the price down, and increase the economy of scale and get more games out there at a more affordable price. And I just think it should be a piece of wood in a cabinet. Everything else should be optically tracked, digitally checked. The computers can do that now. We need to be doing that. I hate wires and lights.
I hate wiring games. So, yeah. No, without Ben, we don't exist. And quite honestly, it was just a few years ago that Greg and Dennis were at Pinball Expo unveiling Project X, and that's kind of what got the wheels turning in my head. Ben and I had gotten to know each other, and we're helping each other do different things. I could do things, he could do things. Honestly, my goal to advance pinball is I quit my job last year. Don't lose my house. That's all I want. He's right. We do need to. There's so many things in manufacturing that, especially for a company our size and Kevin's size, that is just a nightmare. Stern has got a whole crew of people that are just very skilled at blasting through the stuff that it takes us a long time to sort out. But yeah, advancing pinball, I lean on him for that.
I have one more thing. What I really want to do, and I hope to prototype once I have some time now that I've finished this stupid Ghost game, is I want to put a single high-power RGB laser in the cabinet and shoot it into 2 galvanometers and use it to raster paint the underside of the playfield so you can light things without bulbs. That's my evil plan. So I just gave away my evil plans. You can go ahead and steal it. If it helps make these games easier, more power to them.
Okay, the original question was, what can we do to expand
Further pinball,
right?
yeah, expand the industry.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know. We seem to be doing things right. I have a couple rules myself. When I talk to whoever's making the sound, in the case of Star Trek, it was David Thiel, I would say this to him. I want songs that are big, bigger, and biggest. That's what I would ask for. That's an important thing. I think a game to make a good impression. I mean, I could never make, what's that name in the game with the little girl with the red shoes and all that?
Dorothy.
Yeah, I can't do that because I think pinball's about excitement. It's hard to squeeze excitement out of that. I like to look for something that I can squeeze excitement out of easily, that oozes excitement. That's a good thing. And I don't know. As much as I see more and more women playing pinball, the vast majority of us geeks, you go here, it's a great way to meet men. Come to a pinball show. There's a couple women here, but I like you guys and everything, but that's it. Okay. Other than that, I think that. I think that to make a game, it has to be kind of universal. That's what we have to do now. That's our job. It's like it has to appeal to people in the street. It has to work, in a bar, and actually work. We always had 2 rules. I was taught them early on by guys that were at Williams, and they're all gone now, dead and gone. And they used to say, it has to be fun, and it has to work. Those 2 things. So you couldn't make things that didn't work, but we've all made some things that didn't work. Try to avoid them these days with experience and time. Anyway, that's my thoughts about how to grow pinball. I mean, it's going on its own. I think we've got some good teams happening right now that people want, and zombies, definitely, ghost stuff, Predator, cool. It's all cool.
You want to talk before me this time? I think the advancement of pinball has always been like this evolutionary thing, and then every once in a while there's a revolutionary thing that just gives it that extra kick, and that just happens as technology, like Ben was saying, it'll get there, and there will be that revolutionary kick that brings it out of the evolution, of just here's another game and another game with the same technology. So hopefully, that we've got something out there on the horizon that's going to, do that push. And I can't tell you what that is, but hopefully it's out there. We got our binoculars on. We're searching for it. So, and hopefully it's closer than binoculars. But and another thing he said about, my daughters are playing more pinball these days. So there might be something happening there. Yeah.
The newest thing in pinball is probably out on one of the games right now. Well, we just don't realize it. That revolution, that evolution is making the new game, trying a new feature, trying something a little different. And small things that you don't think are the revolution turn out to be the evolution of the game. You look at a game now and you look at a game from 20 years ago, there's nothing alike. And that's the small steps that keep evolving the game. I think the games are a lot more fun to play now. The games 20 years ago are still fun to play, but they're a different game. The game has evolved, and it's just going at a very small pace, something you don't seem to realize. It's like people growing up. You see, this fella, and the guy you see in the mirror every morning, he hasn't changed a bit in 20 years. Oh, yes, he has. And you realize that when you play the game, but we're still enjoying it. I think they are getting better, and it's still a lot of fun to be back in the industry.
Well, I think Ben's method works the best. Ben has a very popular show. He reaches millions of people. He can just say, I'm going to design an electronic bird, and he'll be front page of all the tech blogs. So I think that really helps. And I think pinball inherently has always used technology that is old and cost efficient. So I think now, the LED is cheap. Premier had the first LED, I think, on Arena, actually on a play field. Zizzle in 2005, we had the first full pinball game with all LEDs because it was cheap. And I think so with the LED and the RGB LED and now the LCD screen, I think those technologies are cheap and they're going to move pinball kind of to the next level. Taking all the other traditional things that come with it from the beginning of pinball. But definitely getting younger people involved, everybody's connected, and that helps the most. So Ben's method works. And I've never heard Steve raise his voice before, so I'm scared now.
I've heard Steve raise his voice before today. Let's see what the thing that attracted. I've worked in the damn video game industry for 15 years, and worked at Valve Software most recently, and worked on virtual reality and augmented reality research. So, and the thing that's attracted me to pinball was that it's real, and that's like I had said, the thing that really attracted to me was seeing the insides of an electromechanical pinball machine and realizing that you can have gameplay and game state without a damn computer with you damn kids. Anyway, I'm going to say that a lot. So, I don't know. So I'm more interested in, just it's like Gary Stern says, just making fun out of mechanical things, and the computers can bring a lot to pinball, but and they have, but I think innovations on the playfield is where I want to see stuff. And one of the most innovative things I saw at the show, I think, is I don't know if it's new or not, but Ben Heck's little mini turnaround ghost with a magnet on it. It feels really cool, and to me that's awesome. I think pinball seems to me like it's doing really well, and it's kind of on a uprise. It's not going to stop. I'm starting to see a lot more people have their kids playing, and then they bring their kids bring their friends over, and that's one way it's growing. Another thing is enthusiasts are operating out in places where they didn't have pinball, or the pinball is sort of not taken care of, and hearing about just little towns or small areas where groups of 20-year-olds are just discovering it and they never played it again, and they're like, oh my god, I just played Dr. Dude or roller games or something, and the enthusiasm is growing. And then also Pinball Arcade by Farsight Studios. All the emulations of the games, they're not as good as the real thing, but they're pretty darn good. And you play. I played those a lot and played these games I couldn't find anywhere, and I would start searching for the games that were in there, and started playing the real thing. And I think that's helped a lot too. So I think we're in good shape, personally.
Well, guys, we're actually up against our time limit. I got to say that this is a great panel with some of the legendary figures in pinball history, with some of the brightest upcoming stars in pinball design. I appreciate you guys listening. I really want to thank Dan and Mark from the Midwest Gaming Classic for inviting me. My name is Nate Shivers. I host a podcast called Coast to Coast Pinball. We do 1 to 3 episodes a week. If you're interested, please check us out. Again, I want to thank this great panel. Give them a round of applause, please. All right. Thank you guys very much.
There you have it. That was a lot of fun. I thought it was really interesting hearing the different answers on art versus, game design and where to start from Steve Ritchie and John Papaduke. Ritchie's clearly a guy who wants to start with the shooting and the geometry, and John Papaduke was very clear in saying that it's the theme and the artwork that drives his design process. So interesting stuff. So much fun. Really enjoyed it. I can't wait till next year. Is it too early to say that? Anyway, this has been Coast to Coast Pinball. Of course, it's a podcast commentary. I'm a man out of quarters. Until next time, I'll talk to you real soon. Episode 78 should be out soon, covering day 2. You'll hear, you won't see them, you'll hear interviews with Jim Shelby with the Pin Game Journal, Mike and Chad over at DK Pinball, and just a recap of all the ongoing. So thank you very much for listening. We'll talk to you again soon.